I fight with Prince Aerion and the Accusers.
Well, we did Duncan's champions, so we might as well do Aerion Brightflame Targaryen's champions and explain how good they are in any important details you might have missed. Once again, no spoilers for the trial, we're sticking to the events predating that. So let's kick things off with Daeron the Drunken Targaryen, the unwilling co-sponsor of Aerion's trial by 7. The eldest of Maekar's 4 sons, Daeron might have some martial training, but he cares for that about as much as his father cares about the Andors and their traditions.
Well, if it was the Andors.
Daeron's a lover, not a fighter, and to hear his father put it, he'd rather ride a whore than a horse, which, I mean, who wouldn't? And I'd be amazed if Daeron showed up to this event sober. He's admitted he will not be fighting and will be looking for an easy way out of this with as little pain as possible. Effectively then, Team Brightflame are fighting with 6 men, which likely evens out the trial considering the injuries Team Duncan are carrying. One thing to note about Daeron is that he has dragon dreams. These are dreams and visions which allow him to see the future, though not exactly clearly, more metaphorical for him to decipher. This was a fundamental part of his reasoning for not showing up to the tournament in the first place, as he feared he would die due to dreaming of a dragon dying at Ashford. Next up, the only man with less footage than Humphrey Beesbury is Sir Willem Wylde of the Kingsguard. Yes, we've seen 2 of them already, but as Yoda once said,
there is another.
Yep, this guy who's barely background fodder is the 3rd of the Kingsguard who will be participating. Is he any good? Who knows? He's at least decent though to have a role on the Kingsguard. The most interesting thing about Sir Willem is that he was made a Kingsguard over Sir Quentin Ball, aka Fireball, due to his ginger hair and raging temper. Who's Sir Quentin Ball, you ask? Well, he was once the Master of Arms for King Aegon IV, and was responsible for not only training Daeron's sons Baelor, Aerys, Rhaegal and Maekar, but also Aegon's bastards, Daemon Blackfyre, Aegor Bittersteel and Brendan Rivers, better known as Bloodraven. So this guy knew his stuff, and the proof is in the pudding because some of these guys mentioned were some of, if not the finest warriors of their times. Anyway, Aegon IV promised Quentin that once a position on the Kingsguard opened up, he would make him one. So to prepare for that day, he sent his wife to join the Silent Sisters, basically a nunnery. Dude really wanted that position, but unfortunately a position never opened during Aegon's reign, though one did open under Daeron's reign, but Daeron decided to promote Sir Willem instead. This, as you can imagine, went down well for a guy who sent his wife packing. Cutting a long story short, Fireball decided to throw his lot in with Daemon Blackfyre during the rebellion, and was instrumental in helping Daemon escape the Red Keep and start his rebellion. Yes, the most interesting thing about Sir Willem is everyone else. But he's got to at least be decent, right? Up next, everyone's favourite bad apple, Steffon Fossoway. Steffon, the slimy git, does have some skills that we've witnessed. He's big brothered Raymond plenty of times and we see him do it in episode 1. In terms of mentality, in the book it's mentioned that Steffon likes to pick his opponents wisely. He enjoys sparring people before tournaments in the hopes of injuring them and then picking them as an opponent in the tournament. But he's not picky. If you've picked up an injury elsewhere, he'd be just as happy to continue where someone else left off. One thing I do want to address is the reasons for why he joined Aerion's team. He mentions the promise of a lordship. Can Aerion do this himself? Unlikely, but he can more than likely bend his grandfather's ear to reward a man who stepped up for House Targaryen. Steffon himself is a landed knight with a keep. His family, the Fossoways, were once lords in the Reach, but at some unspecified time between the Dance of the Dragons and the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the Fossoways were stripped of the lordship, but not of the keep of Cider Hall. Being a lord in Westeros means that Steffon would have vassals. These vassals would owe him taxes, labour or military service. In return, he maintains order and he protects them in the name of his liege and the crown. He would be the big cheese in the area in that regards. So it's basically a way of expanding his power and importance and climbing that social ladder, none of which Duncan could offer him. Now, let's circle back in with the other 2 Kingsguard we've already met, and they even have a couple of lines. As a reminder, that's Roland Crakehall of the Westerlands and Sir Donnel of Duskendale. Roland is noted as being the larger of the 2 men, and that tracks with the TV show, but otherwise not much is really known about him in terms of history. But again, if you're on the Kingsguard, you're generally quite good. Sir Donnel, though, does have some history, and that's mainly intertwined with Sir Humphrey Harding, one of his 7 opponents in the upcoming trial. He previously met Harding at the Tournament of Maidenpool, but lost to him in the joust, so a slight edge in favour of Team Dunk there. But again, losing to Harding in a joust is nothing to be ashamed about. Anyway, enough of these Kingsguard and their 3 sentences in the White Book, let's move on to the no-nonsense daddy, Maekar. The 4th son of King Daeron and Baelor's younger brother, Maekar is battle-tested. We mentioned in the last video how Baelor and Maekar were known as the Hammer and the Anvil for their part in crushing Daemon Blackfire's army at the Battle of the Redfield Grass. So it's not just tournament experience the prince possesses, but actual battlefield action. Although Baelor and Maekar are cut from the same cloth in terms of prowess, their personalities couldn't be more different, with the younger brother being harsher and more cutting. He has a chip on his shoulder and he wants his sons to live up to his ideals.
Are you cowering behind some 6,000-year-old Andal foolery because you're afraid to face this Hedge Knight alone?
But that's proving rather hard with Daeron. Instead, he's starting to put all his eggs in one basket with Aerion, who's shown some promise at least. Imagine Tywin Lannister's overbearing parental instincts and disdain for disappointment without the hypocrisy.
He can change. He will change. Gods be damned.
I'll swear I'll see him dead.
Oh, but then give him a big mace and the willingness to help you meet the stranger and that's Maekar. We've often spoke on the channel how blunt objects like warhammers and maces are far more effective in battle against armoured foes than swords. So yeah, stay away from Maekar. Unlike the rest of the team, we know he's experienced and he's got the weaponry for the job. And finally, that leaves us with Brightflame Aerion Targaryen. What do we have to say about him? Well, he's at least somewhat interested in taking part in tournaments. No real battle experience, but he's at least better trained than Dunk and he's participated in an actual joust. Where he lacks in physicality, as he's described as having a rather average build, he will make up in skill at arms. Aerion's a brilliant contrast to Duncan. Where Duncan's likely had poor tutelage in jousting and combat from Sir Roland, Aerion can likely boast that he's been trained by the very best in Westeros. Where Duncan wears his heart and intentions on his sleeve, Aerion will smile at you before stabbing you in the back. Aerion is dangerous. He will fight you using whatever underhanded tactics he can gain an advantage with, so keep an eye out for him. He's a dark horse. And that about sums it up for Team Aerion Brightflame Targaryen. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you really enjoy the upcoming trial in the next episode of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Thanks for watching.